Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een wa man walahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hal uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair wa bika nasta'een ya Fattah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, for the past 2 days, we've been engaging ourselves in learning about Ramadan, the blessed month that has come in front of us. And we're using our time wisely in order to gain the pleasure and the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today, what we want to talk about is a more detailed discussion on because we talked about the command of fasting and we have to fast, and then not only that, yesterday we discussed how one day with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go. If we were to be there at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive, then at that time, one day spent with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how that would go and how we would interact with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how would the Prophet interact with us during that entire fast. We discussed that yesterday. Today, what we want to discuss is that we know that we have to fast. We know that the Prophet ﷺ fasted and he did certain things. So we start our fast. We keep our fast. How do we know that my fast is valid or it is not valid at the end of the day? So in order for us to see that and to figure that out, what we must do is a very simple thing. And what is that? Is that, we need to learn certain principles, certain ways we can figure out that if my fast is valid or not. Now, just before we move on to the principles on what invalidates a fast or the fast, we need to first, there's a little bit of disclaimer here. There are two types of things that necessarily break a fast. One is that thing which enters the body. Right? We'll discuss on how it enters the body and what enters the body, what it is, what is not, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, it has to enter the body. Now, that's one type. And the second is the relations of a husband and wife. What the husband and wife do when nobody else is watching them, that action, which we'll refer to as the relations of the husband and wife, that, because there are children listening, I don't want to talk about that second aspect of it at all. If you have any questions, any specific questions that you wish to be addressed, or you want that you want me to answer, I can answer that, inshallah. If you want, you can email me at daruloom.edmonton@gmail.com. daruloom.edmonton@gmail.com. You can email at that email and just write inquiry or fatwa inquiry or something like that in the subject line, and I will return your thing regarding that section. So what we're going to talk about today is only one type of things that invalidate your fast, and that is that which enters the body. Now, a full disclaimer before we get started. When it comes to looking at what breaks the fast, in Islam, we look towards medical science a little bit, not fully. I'll mention some examples near the end where you'll understand exactly what I mean here, is that certain things we look towards medical science and certain things we won't. right? So this is to understand that I'm going to combine both things. So make sure you're not confused that, oh, why is he looking into medical science so much, and what is he doing? What is this Mali Saab going crazy for? No, what it is some things we look at the medical science, and some things we do not at all. Absolutely, we don't, right? And secondly, second disclaimer is that the invalidation of a fast is based on principles that are derived from Quran, Hadith, and the lives of the Prophet ﷺ and his beloved Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. These principles that I'm going to present to you, because of the lack of time that we have, we're unable to actually talk about, the detailed discussion of which hadith mentions what and which sahabi has mentioned what, all this. We can't really talk about that. So summarizing all of that, I'm just explaining simply. So what it is that we have to not think of it emotionally, but rather we should take it as these principles are established from Quran and Hadith, regardless of what my emotion wants. My emotion wants that my fast should be valid, or my emotion wants that it should be invalid. If the principles that are derived from Quran, Hadith, the life of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the life of the Sahaba, if the principles that are derived from there are not fulfilled, then it doesn't matter what I feel, that fast cannot be invalid or valid. If I feel that it should be valid and it's invalid because of the principles, it's not going to be invalid or valid because of what I feel. It will be invalid or valid based on the principles that are set down by the Quran, Hadith, Sahaba, so on and so forth, right? And one last thing to understand is that generally the populace that I have come into contact with, specifically through the online. Now we're doing it online. Before we had things. So the populace that I keep coming into contact with is the population of the Hanafi school of thought, right? So therefore, these principles will be based on the Hanafi school of thought. If you have any specific question, maybe you don't you follow the Shafi school of thought, or Maliki school of thought, or Hanbali school of thought, and you have a question, then I'll be glad to answer that question by going to a Shafi alim, a Maliki alim, so on and so forth, and sitting with them and getting the answer to you. That's not much of an issue. However, I will not personally give a fatwa or a ruling on anything that is not according to the Hanafi fiqh. That's the first disclaimer that I want to get before we go. Now, moving on. Principles on what invalidate the fast. We have to understand this from 5 types of things. So like I said, type 1 of the invalidation is what enters the body. Now, whatever enters the body is going to have a presence. As a substance, it's going to have a presence. And that presence of so the first thing is that the presence of the substance we'll look at. The second, we'll get in each point written on the slide, we will look at in great detail, and we'll go through each of them, trying to understand how each of them work and revolve around the fiqh. So the presence of a substance, number 1. Number 2, the place the substance must reach in the body. So that substance is now there, that thing is there, it goes in the body, but where should it go? In order for the fast to break, where does that substance need to go? Number 3, the point from where the substance must enter. So every substance going into the body will enter the body somehow. It's not just going to enter the body, you clapped your fingers and it entered the body. It's going to go through some sort of entry point. So we're going to discuss which entry points invalidate the fast, which entry points do not invalidate the fast. Number 4, the substance needs to be such that when it has entered, it stays there. It's not something that you can just pull it out or something like that. No, it needs to stay in the body. And what that means, we'll discuss that. The presence of excuses. There are certain excuses that that stop us from invalidating our fast, that stop us from the fast being invalid. And the reality is that these excuses need to be understood correctly. If we do not understand them correctly, then everything becomes an excuse, and everything is not an excuse. So what we need to do is we need to go through those excuses one by one and look at what is what and how everything fits. So let's start with number one, the presence of a substance. The golden rule when it comes to the presence of a substance is the substance needs to have a discernible body. It needs to have some sort of form, and this form needs to be visible. It needs to be visible. You need to be able to see it with your eyes. So for example, you will be able to see like a drop of water, right? Or flour, or grain, or a grain of rice, or some flour, the flour you use for cooking. You'll be able to see that flour. And at the same time, steam. When steam comes off and boiling water is there and steam is coming off, then you can see the steam. So the steam has a discernible body. It has something that you can see. It's visible, right? So what invalidates the fast? The presence of a substance, that which has a discernible body, invalidates the fast. So it has to have some sort of body. You can tell, you can see. It's normally visible, right? It is of no consideration whether the substance is edible or not. Meaning it's something that, I can eat and I can swallow and I can digest, or not. I can't digest it, no problem. But if that substance is such that it is edible or not, but has a discernible body, it will invalidate the fast when it enters the body and reaches the digestive system, like we'll discuss. Liquid or solid, it doesn't matter if the substance is liquid, solid, in a gas form, it doesn't matter. Melts or doesn't melt, it doesn't matter. Meaning it goes in my mouth, it melts, it does not melt, there is no consideration for that when it comes to the invalidation of the fast. Has nutritional, medicinal value or not? Has a nutritional or medicinal, or it doesn't have any sort of value, meaning it's just something worthless. You ate paper. Paper has no nutritional value and has no medicinal value, meaning generally it's not used as nutrition, and or generally it's not used as medicine. So therefore it comes under the not category. But it doesn't matter. When it comes to the substance, if it has a nutritional value, it can still invalidate the fast. If it has a medicinal value, it can still invalidate the fast. Or if it does not have any of those, it can still invalidate the fast. And one thing to mention here and to understand is a sensation in the mouth does not necessarily entail that the substance has entered the mouth. Smelling something does not necessarily entail that a substance has entered the nose, right? So a sensation in the mouth or a trace smell absolutely do not entail that a substance has entered through the nose or through the mouth and is going to go to your digestive system, go to your stomach. So what is it? Is that, sometimes you taste something and you have a lingering taste. You just did sahri or you did suhoor, mashallah, and you're sitting after fajr and you're reading your Quran and you're waiting for the fajr salah, and you, mashallah, you start reading fajr, you've read fajr, and then after like an hour or so, you were reading Quran after fajr, you get this taste in your mouth as if you're eating chicken. Or you get this taste in your mouth, or you get something in your mouth and you don't know, you didn't eat anything, you didn't have anything. So a sensation in the mouth does not necessarily mean that somebody ate something. No, that has nothing to do with it. Or a trace smell. So maybe you're just sitting there and now all of a sudden you can smell something and you're like, what is this? And you're just thinking to yourself, what's that smell? But that does not mean that something has gone in your nose because of which there is your fast will be invalidated. So the rule here is that the substance needs to have a discernible body, in order for that to invalidate the fast. So the rule is that it has a discernible body. So moving on, the second thing is the place the substance must reach in the body. So now we've decided what the substance is like. Now we know as a general thing that the substance is going to be this. This is the substance, and we're going to use this as a thing. So we decided that the substance needs to have a discernible body regardless of whatever it is. Okay, next, where does the substance need to go in order for the substance to invalidate my fast? So what is it? The substance needs to reach the digestive system. Now look, this is one of those places where you have to understand science would say the digestive system is much more than what's written on your slide right there, right? Science would include other things in the digestive system, but we're talking about Sharia. What does Sharia count as the digestive system? Irregardless of what science counts. And science could be right. That's not the problem. Science is right in its own world, but Sharia is right in its own world. Because what's happening here is that science would include certain things, but Sharia would not include certain things in the digestive system. So in the digestive system, what does Sharia include? Because we're looking at a Shari'i ruling. We're looking at what Islamically breaks my fast. So that substance needs to reach the digestive system. It needs to reach the digestive system in order for it to break the fast. Now, the digestive system is composed of three things, according to Sharia. The first is the throat. So if that substance reaches the throat, the fast becomes invalid. Number two is the stomach. If the substance reaches the stomach, the fast becomes invalid. If the substance reaches the intestines, the fast would become invalid. Right? So now, from that, one can understand that if the substance reaches the finger or the thigh or somewhere else, right? Or the substance just reaches reaches the left of my chest, right? But not the stomach. Or the substance misses the stomach and reaches somewhere else. Then that substance would not invalidate the fast. But if any of these three places, the substance reaches any of these three places, Sharia would consider that the fast is broken. So what are these three places? The throat, the stomach, the intestines, right? So the golden rule here to understand is that which reaches the digestive system invalidates the fast. Next, so we discussed what the substance should be, where should the substance go. Now we're going to discuss where should it come in from. So it's going to enter the body, but it's going to enter the body from certain places. So where should the substance enter from? So the rule here is the substance must reach the digestive system through an invalidating entry point to invalidate the fast. Now, this is to summarize it, right? So invalidating entry point. So we know we have our substance, we have our digestive system, we know this substance needs to go to the digestive system. We just need to figure out how it's going to get there. How is it going to get there? So in order for it to get there, it has some entry points. Some entry points. Now, the body has natural entry points. There are 7 entry points in the body that are natural. The mouth, the nose, the ears, the eyes, the anus, the vagina, and the urinal passage. Right? So these 7 points are such a place where the substance can enter. They're natural. Then there are certain things that are not naturally there. Actually, you know what? Add one more natural. The pores of the body. So there are 8 natural, naturally occurring entry points in the body. The pores of the skin, the pores of the body, the skin of the body. So something can be absorbed through the skin. For example, you put on oil, you put some cream on your skin. So it goes and it absorbs into the skin through the pores and so on and so forth. Then it gives you, rejuvenates your skin or whatever, right? And then you have certain thing that is unnatural. Then you have something that is unnatural. And for example, an injury that occurs. And in the classical books of fiqh, two types of injuries are generally mentioned. The first is a deep head injury. Something, there's a head injury, but it's deep. It's very deep. And number two is a deep abdominal injury. Something in your abdomen, in your stomach area, there's an injury there, right? An injury so deep that it reaches the stomach or intestines. And in the other case, the deep head injury would be defined as an injury so deep that it reaches the brain, right? So you could have injuries. They are also an entry point. So now, for example, somebody sprays some water on a deep abdominal injury, then that would invalidate the fast, because that can reach the stomach like that. That's the thing we will use. And out of all these entry points, these 10 entry points that are mentioned, 8 natural entry points, and then the 2 unnatural injury-based entry points that are not common, right? And these entry points can be defined in 3 scenarios: that which is directly linked to the digestive system, that which is not directly linked with the digestive, it's indirectly linked to the digestive system, and that which in its entirety is not linked to the digestive system. And after looking at these 3 things, we come to the conclusion that whatever is directly or indirectly linked to the digestive system will be a invalidating entry point. So a fast is only invalidated when the substance reaches the digestive system from an invalidating entry point. And the invalidating entry point can be explained as an entry point linked with the digestive system, either directly or indirectly. The fast is only invalidated if the substance comes through this type of entry point, right? And that's how you can understand what would be an invalid or a valid entry point. And now on the screen, just to make everything easier, this was an explanation to understand exactly what was going on, right? I'm going to go into a little bit more detail regarding some of these entry points and talk about them a little bit. But before I do that, I want to talk about invalidating entry points. So the invalidating entry points are the mouth, the nose, the anus, and a deep abdominal injury. If that substance goes in through any of these points, then the assumption is made that that substance has reached the digestive system. And what was our rule? If the substance goes into the body and reaches the digestive system through one of these points, then the fast is invalid, right? The fast is invalid. There's still a little bit more to add to that, but so far what we've learned is the substance needs to, the defined substance needs to reach the digestive system through the invalidating entry point in order to invalidate the fast. Basically, that's what it is. And what are these invalidating points? Invalidating entry points? It goes in through the mouth. You ate something from the mouth, or you sniffed something through the nose, or something was put in through the rear end, through the anus, or you had an injury in your abdomen so deep that it reached the stomach. And then somebody put something in there and it reached the stomach during your fast. That fast will break. Or you put something in there. An example, right? Now, there are some points that I mentioned. For example, you had ears, you had eyes, you had the female private part, vagina. You had the urinal passage, right, where urine comes out of. Or you had a deep head injury, or you had pores of the body. These 6 are not invalidating entry points. And I'm going to talk about, listen, so ears, until very recently, I won't say very recently, but until you could say until about 40 to 50 to 60 years ago, give or take, 50 to 60 years ago, the masla, the entire fatwa was on that anything that enters the ear will actually invalidate the fast. Anything put into the ear will invalidate the fast. But remember, I mentioned that science has a little bit of leeway when it comes to this mas'ala. The ears, they have what you could say, they have a little barrier. There's the eardrum, right? And this eardrum prevents things from going into the body. It's actually there to prevent things from going into the body. So the scholars have then written that the eardrum, if it is not if there's not a hole in the eardrum or something like that, or something wrong with the eardrum, that it's not functioning properly, because of which something put into the ear actually goes to the other side, if that is the case, then that thing will break the fast. But if the eardrum is not working perfectly, and it's stopping things from going into the body, then it will not break the fast, right? So eyes, now eyes have pores, right? So that's the ears masla. Everybody understands that. The eyes, now when it comes to eyes have pores. They have small pores in them, right? And the thing with the eyes is that scientifically, so look, when it came to the ears, we said that the ears are scientifically, they cannot connect to the digestive system. We said that makes sense. The eyes, scientifically, we said that we're saying that the eyes are connected, the pores of the eyes are connected to the nose, right? And so on and so forth. So the eyes and the nose are connected. However, the Muslim scholars treat the eyes as a special case. And there's a reason for that. Because the Prophet ﷺ used to use antimony, kohl, surma, during fasting. Now, Prophet ﷺ is using kohl, surma, and putting it on his eyes, and that is going through the pores and going there, and yet still the Prophet does not consider it as enough to invalidate the fast. That tells us that the eyes, they're not considered part of the as leading to the digestive system. It's not considered an invalidating entry point, right? And so through that, what we understand is that science sometimes has some things to say, right? But when it comes to hadith, regardless of what science will say, the hadith will hold precedence, right? The hadith will hold precedence, and the hadith will be the one that we will actually look towards. Then thirdly, when it comes down to in one of the invalidating points, right, is that the anus. So sometimes a medical procedure is there and fingers need to be put into the anus, and somebody's fasting or something like that. Then what is or some sort of lubricant or something like that needs to be put in, especially when there's old age patients. They go through regular procedures of these type of things, examinations and so on and so forth. So keeping that in mind, what I want to impress is that when it comes to the anus, it needs to go 1 finger's length into the anus, right? Substance needs to go 1 finger's length into the anus. So if, let's say, a medical suppository or something like that was being used to aid that person through a digestive movement, and that suppository was the size of a finger, and it was put inside the anus, then only would the fast break. Then only would the fast break. So it's not just anything goes in the anus, and no. It's that you put it went in, but it needs to go a finger's length into the actual area, right? And number 4 I want to talk about is that once again we'll look at modern medicine. Classical scholars have written that if anything enters into the private part of the women, it should invalidate the fast. But science has taught us that the women's private region is separate from the digestive tract, right, and the digestive system, because of which we now exclude this from there. And this in this mas'ala we will take the benefit of science. And the fifth thing I want to talk about is a deep head injury. Now, once again, the same thing, right? We will see that. So there is a portion in the skull which is known as the basal skull, right? When the basal skull is fractured, then only does when the basal skull is fractured, then only does an injury in the head actually lead to the throat, right? So in books of classical fiqh, you'll find that it says that, head injury is like that, because in that time it was believed that the head and brain was connected to the throat, right? What they did not know at the time was that there is something separating both of them, stopping one thing from entering the other. So if that basal skull is fractured, if your doctor says your basal skull is fractured, I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't know how that happens. But all I'm saying is just to understand, if the doctor says to you that your basal skull is fractured and you have a head injury, and through that, something goes in through the basal skull into the throat, when you have that problem, then we will consider that a deep head injury is good enough for to invalidate the fast. Otherwise, it won't invalidate the fast. And lastly, on this point, what I want to talk about is an injury is not exhaustive in the two mentioned examples. So a deep abdominal injury, right? What matters in relation to an injury is whether or not it is connected to the digestive system. So let's say you have an abdominal injury, but it's not connected to the digestive system. Then that abdominal injury is not mu'tabar. It is not looked as it could invalidate your fast. But an injury that is connected to your digestive tract, digestive system, and through that something enters into that injury and goes to the digestive system, then it will indeed invalidate the fast. One other thing that I wrote on there is to understand is that asthma inhaler, right, will invalidate the fast. So somebody has asthma and they have an attack and they need to take their inhaler, right? Completely understandable. We're going to discuss that in excuses, that there are certain reasons because of which you might have to break the fast. That's completely fine. A person will not get a sin at that moment, but the fast will be broken. That is completely understandable. And because the person broke a fast with a certain necessity and a certain thing, then that person will have to do qada, but not kafara. That person will not have to do kafara. And kafara means that fasting for 60 days straight and so on and so forth. But that person does not have to do that. But we'll get to that, inshallah, later on. Next week, we're going to talk about kafara, qada, and so on and so forth. Next week, Friday, inshallah. Today, we're just going to discuss this, what breaks the fast. So an asthma inhaler will invalidate the fast. Now, one thing to understand, one more thing to just put out there. We have to understand that, taking injections in the arm, thigh, buttocks, or the like thereof, right, will not invalidate the fast. Likewise, for taking eye drops, because they are used in the eye. So, one could say that it's only for surma. No, it wasn't only for surma, because that point is always there. So what we consider is that the eye is no longer a point of entry that invalidates the fast. So using eye drops during fasting will not break your fast. But using nose drops or some people have stuffy noses, so they use that spray, nose spray. Using nose spray during the fast will break the fast. There's just a little, this, you just have to understand where it's entering from, defines how it's going to break the fast and how it's not going to break the fast. Another thing is that it has to reach the throat. One thing to understand is the mouth goes to the throat, the nose again goes to the throat, the anus, it has to go to the intestine, it goes to the intestine, which is the digestive system, and a deep abdominal injury, it goes to the stomach. So it either has to reach the stomach, throat, or the intestine somehow. So for example, if a person took a piece of bread and put it on his tongue and put that in his mouth and closed his mouth, and then took the bread out and put it out and then spit out the taste of that bread, that would not break his fast. It will be makruh. That's not something you should do, but that will not break the fast at all. Why? Because we know that the bread that was there, it was taken out again, and it did not reach the throat. In the same manner, if a person now, like I was mentioning, the nose spray, if the spray is done, then you have no guarantee that it did not reach the throat, because it's a spray, it just sprays everywhere. As compared to if you took some balm or something and you just put the balm around your nose, right? You put the balm there. You know for a fact that that did not reach the throat because it's on the outside of your nose. On the outside of your nostrils, you put the balm there. You know it did not reach the throat. So putting a balm like that, right, should be fine, right? It wouldn't be a problem. So it has to actually reach the digestive system. So it goes through the invalidating point, reaching the digestive system. Moving on. So one last thing. So now we've discussed, right? Let's quickly summarize. We've discussed that what the substance needs to be like. It needs to have a discernible body. Then we discussed that the substance is, where the substance must get to. We said it has to get to the digestive system, the throat, the stomach, or the intestine. It has to get there. And then we talked about how is it going to get there. So the next thing we're going to discuss is once it gets there, what happens to it, right? So what it is once it gets there, it needs to stay there. It can't be something that is just, taken out again and it's not there. So once it gets there, it needs to stay in the throat. It's not something that comes out of the throat. No, it's not something that comes out again of the stomach because it's attached to something. So what's the rule here is that the stay of something is defined as two things. Either it is unattached and it independently stays in the digestive system, or it is attached to something that is outside the digestive system. A simple way to understand this is like, let's say you wanted to eat a peanut, right? But I don't know why you would do this, but I'm just explaining this as an example to understand what I mean here. Is that, let's say somebody had something attached, and you'll see what I mean by this. Somebody had something attached to a stick or a string, right? And the peanut is attached to the string, and you take the peanut, put it in your mouth, and you swallow it. Now the string is obviously going to go, but you're still holding on to the string. So the peanut starts going in, and it reaches somewhere. And then what do? It reaches there, but when you're done with it, you pull it right back out. The fast will not break. It entered, the substance is something that can break the fast. A peanut has a discernible body. We check mark to that. Number two is that the substance went to the throat, to the stomach, to the intestines, wherever it went, we know that it's fine. So it went to where it's supposed to go. And number three, it went in through the right direction, meaning that it went through the mouth, into the throat, into the stomach. So it got to where it needs to get to. So the fast should break. But this peanut didn't stay there. What happened to it? We took it right back out. And because we took it right back out, the fast is considered as not broken. A practical example of this, imagine if you're deep diving into somebody's stomach with a camera in order to find something or something like that, through which, you pull the camera back out. So therefore, the fast will not break. Right? Unless if you go in with something and then you spray some other things in there that you leave and then you come back out. We'll discuss that, inshallah, what endoscopy and so on and so forth. We'll talk about that in the ending. There's a little chart there with the common cases, and we'll talk about that chart, inshallah, about what commonly happens and what breaks fast, what does not break fast, so on and so forth. So these are the four things that need to take place in order for a fast to be broken. What are they again? The substance needs to be discernible. The substance needs to reach the digestive system, the throat, the intestines, or the stomach. The substance needs to reach the digestive system through a invalidating entry point, the mouth, nose, the anus, and the and a deep and a deep abdominal injury. And number 4 is that the substance, when it goes there and reaches there and all those other things happen, it needs to stay there. It's not something that's going to come back out. And by come back out, obviously, I don't mean that the digestive system takes its toll on it and then it comes out as feces. That's not what's meant here. It's meant that this thing is unattached from something outside the digestive system. So it needs to be unattached from this from something outside of the digestive system and independently stay within the digestive system for the course of the digestive system in order for the fast to break, for the course of the digestive tract, in order for the fast to break, right? Then what if all of this takes place, but I have an excuse why it happened? Then that excuse will supersede all other notions. And that excuse will be taken in order for the fast to not break. So next we're going to talk about is the presence of excuses. There are certain excuses that can prevent the fast from being invalidated, even if all the other 4 criteria that we just mentioned are met. So if all these 4 criteria are met, even then, if an excuse is there, then obviously it will not break the fast. So it will prevent the fast from being invalidated. It will not break the fast. If you have any of these excuses while that incident occurred, then the fast will not break. Number 1 excuse is forgetfulness. This happens to everybody. What type of forgetfulness? Such that if one were to forget that one was fasting, but did something that would otherwise invalidate the fast, then it will not invalidate the fast. So you have to forget that you were fasting in total. You have to completely forget that you were fasting. This is irrespective of how much benefit one gained. So imagine I totally forgot that I was fasting and I ate a whole chicken. So mashallah, now you got the benefit of eating a whole chicken, but because you completely forgot that you were fasting, you're considered as nisyan. You're considered ma'dhur. Therefore, you're considered as you did not invalidate your fast. So someone who forgetfully drank a little water is equal to someone who forgetfully ate a full meal. In both cases, the fast is not invalidated. The fast will not be invalidated. So a person, if he forgets and he completely did not remember that he was fasting, right? This will be different from one thing that we met. One is an accident and one is a forgetfulness. So an accident and forgetfulness, there's a difference. And we'll talk about accident in the next slide, inshallah. Now, the second excuse is that there's something stuck between your teeth from before Fajr. So you ate something before Fajr and something has been stuck in your teeth and now it comes out, right? And what happens is it goes down your throat. But it was stuck before Fajr, right? It was stuck before Fajr. So what's the rule here? That it has to be less than the size of a chickpea, right? It has to be less than a size of a chickpea. Now, if the smaller chickpeas, not the big ones that you get in the cans nowadays, but the smaller ones, it has to be less than the size of that, right? If it's less than the size of that, then the fast will not be invalid. But if it is equal to or bigger than the size of those smaller chickpeas, then it will break the fast. Then it will break the fast. The third excuse that we look at is some very small substance enters the mouth. And what is the size of this substance? It's the size of a sesame seed, right? Now, what do we consider here? If the substance is the size of a sesame seed and it is chewed such that no taste is found in the throat, absolutely no taste is found in the throat, then that substance will not invalidate the fast. It's very small, number 1, and number 2, you cannot even taste it. There's no taste for it. it's so small that there's no taste for it, not because your taste buds are dead because you drank some hot coffee or something, not because of that, but it's generally a substance that if anybody ate, they would not, it's so small that it does not even have any taste, right? In that case scenario, the fast would not be valid. But if it's small and it's chewed such that the taste is found in the throat, then that substance would invalidate the fast. And lastly, there are certain things that are unavoidable. You don't have any way of actually avoiding these scenarios and actually knowing that you can run away from these scenarios, right? So even if you had your guard up, this would apply for things that one is not able to guard oneself from. So you had your guard up, you were like, okay, I'm not gonna do this, but it happened, it just came up, right? And examples of these substances, it's a long list, right? So I'm going to tell you what these examples are. I don't want to what you got. I didn't get a chance to actually write down the whole list. Maybe I'll make a little flyer type thing, and what invalidates the fast, what does not invalidate the fast, and we'll have something like that if I get a chance, inshallah. Water that remains in the mouth and nose from wudu. Sometimes you do wudu and some water remains. Like, you tried your best to get the water out of your mouth, but there's something remained, and that went in. That's unavoidable. You're going to have to do wudu, so you can't avoid that. So therefore, what it is the mouth and nose. You try your best to get rid of that water from the mouth and nose, but you can blow your nose like, and you can do that, and and you can blow your nose or something like that and try to get rid of the water, or you can spit multiple times and try to get rid of the remaining water that's just there out. After that, if there's any water remaining, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he excuses that. That's ma'fu an, that's excused. Possible dampness when one is showering. So sometimes, there's some possible dampness that arises when you're showering, and that dampness goes to your mouth and you can feel it in your mouth, right? You don't necessarily take in steam, right? But rather it's just you feel that dampness in your mouth, right? And that dampness in your mouth it won't invalidate the fast. Mucus comes out, won't invalidate. Snot. Now, snot comes out of the body and then one eats it, that invalidates the fast. But snot comes on the nose and one goes and just takes it up by the nose, that will not invalidate the fast. Mucus comes in the tongue, in the mouth, and one swallows it, it will not invalidate the fast. If mucus comes on the thing and one spits it out and eats it again, obviously it will invalidate the fast, because that will be considered that it came out and in. Saliva, same ruling. Saliva comes, that's fine. Sometimes you're talking and saliva comes to the end of your lips. It comes on your lips. Now, so you're talking, and from talking, that saliva came and then it went back in, and you had no control over it. In that manner, right, that saliva will not break the fast. That's unavoidable circumstances. Bugs and flies enter your mouth. You're on, you see in Pakistan, people are riding their motorcycles, mashallah, no helmet, nothing, and the bugs are going into their mouth. Right? I had an unfortunate incident just like this in Pakistan once, where we were riding on the motorcycle and mashallah, I swallowed a couple of flies. But that will not break the fast. It won't. It's an unavoidable circumstance, situation, and you won't break the fast. Dust. You're in the middle of a desert. Dust is flying all over the place, and it goes in your mouth. You can't do anything about it. But if there's dust there, and you know that if you go there, it's going to happen, and you don't need to go there, then going there will actually invalidate the fast. Smog from the traffic. Traffic has smog, that won't break the fast. Flour from a flour mill. The flour is flying everywhere, and you're working in the flour mill. These are examples, and then you can base other things on these examples. What may be in the air when working as a construction worker? So something's flying in the air here and there. So that will break the. What may be in the air that will not break the fast. What may be in the air when working at the construction site, so on and so forth. Unavoidable substances, if deliberately swallowed or inhaled, will break the fast. Deliberation is very key here. If you purposefully swallowed unavoidable substances, like I mentioned, then that will break your fast. Now, these are excuses that are considered an excuse by Shariat. But what are things that are not considered an excuse by Shariat is, the first thing is accidents, right? A person remembers that he's fasting. So, there's a guy, he's joking around. He's like, oh, look, I'm going to eat this. I'm going to eat this. I'm going to eat this. Oh, I put it on my tongue. I put it on my tongue. And accidentally it goes in. That broke his fast. That is not an excuse, right? That breaks his fast. So that is an accident. He knew he was fasting, but it accidentally ended up. Somebody, they're playing with water guns. This happened to a friend of mine. They were playing with water guns, and he was playing with his children. And while playing with his children decided to aim for his mouth. He was fasting. They decided to aim for his mouth. Now he knows he's fasting. They aimed for his mouth. The water went right in his mouth, in his throat. So he's laughing, and they aimed for his mouth, and it went inside, and he felt the water go inside. So accidents happen. He knows he was fasting, but what ended up happening was that something went down. So accidents happen. Yes, Allah may not give you sin. However, the ruling is that accidents are not considered an excuse. Your fast will break. So if one mistakenly swallowed water while making wudu, then that would invalidate their fast. Just another example. Invalidating the fast out of necessity, right? All necessities, emergency, medical emergency, things like that. If a person somebody's pregnant and they start feeling dizzy, and their doctor has told them that if you're feeling dizzy, you should not be fasting. If you're feeling dizzy, you should be eating this and that or something like that. Or they have a diabetes or something, and a person is about to faint and they need to eat some sugar or something sugary. In that manner, these are emergencies, medical emergencies, proper emergencies, through which a person could potentially harm themselves, right? We'll discuss, inshallah, next week on Friday. What are those things through which I can figure out should I be fasting or not? Number one. Number two, should I break my fast or not? So inshallah, next week we'll discuss that. There's an entire slide, an entire presentation prepared for that. It's a whole different topic, right? So invalidating the fast out of necessity. And doing something out of necessity that will invalidate the fast is not considered an excuse that will lift the invalidation of the fast. So if one is feeling sick and drinks water, must take medicine, must use an asthma pump or asthma inhaler or the like thereof, then all these things will invalidate the fast. A person will not get sin. A person will have to do qada, but will not have to do kafara, because there was necessity to invalidate the fast, to break the fast, technically. Not necessarily invalidate, but to break the fast. Unawareness, right? Being unaware that something will invalidate the fast is not an excuse. Meaning, oh, I didn't know the masla, Maulay Sahab, what could I do? No, the fast is invalidated. So let's say something occurs. 3 days later, Maulana tells me that, that fast was technically invalid. No problem. You would have to do qada for that fast. Kafara, we'll talk about that ruling. There's a little bit of ikhtilaf there, and I'll explain that should you do kafara or should you not. Inshallah, we'll talk about that at a later date on next Friday, inshallah. So this would even apply if one would not have. You see, how to explain it? Okay, so if someone did not know that taking medicine will invalidate the fast and therefore took a pill for a headache, then that will invalidate the fast. This applies even if one would not have done it if one had known that taking a pill would invalidate the fast. So you had good intention. It's not that you wanted to invalidate your fast, but unawareness of the mas'ala, unawareness of the ruling is not an excuse to say that the fast is not invalid. Another thing, all three of these are the same. Sleeping, unconsciousness, and insanity come under the same ruling. Insanity, right? There are definitions of insanity, unconsciousness, and sleeping, but they are case-to-case basis. So what it is that, you go to a local mufti or an alim and you tell them that, this is the level of insanity that this person goes under during their fast.
what happens? This is the level of unconsciousness that they reach, and this is so on and so forth. And each thing needs to be looked at individually. Now, in the case of sleep, unconsciousness, insanity, if in any case, it is such that if one does something while in this scenario that would invalidate the fast, then it would be considered invalid. While he's sleepwalking, he eats something, and somebody witnesses, oh, you ate something, then his fast is broken. He's unconscious and somebody put something down his throat, his fast is broken. Insanity, he's lost the capacity to understand what's going on. However, somebody gives him some food and puts it down his throat or something, his fast is broken. And lastly, being forced. So let's say somebody pressures somebody into breaking their fast, and that person agrees to that pressure and breaks their fast, the fast is broken. Once again, these scenarios may be unfortunate, or they may be last case scenarios, but they may not lead to sin, but they will invalidate the fast. So there is not like, accidentally something happened. It's not saying that, you got sin because you broke your fast. No, that's an accident. It happens. Rufi'a an ummati al-khata'u wa nisyan. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that for my ummah, accidents and forgetfulness have been forgiven. Meaning the sins of that are forgiven. There is no sin on forgetfulness, and there's no sin on accidents. The need of necessity. Al-darura tubihu al-mahdhurat. The necessity makes even haram actions sometimes halal. Sometimes, in certain scenarios. Unawareness, right? Jahalat. That is completely understandable. Not everybody is going to know every masla. Sleeping, you do something in the sleep, you didn't even know you were doing it, but it happened, because of which we say the fast is broken. Unconsciousness, you didn't even know you were doing it. Insanity, that person cannot even remember what their condition was, right? Or being forced, the person is being forced, so he had to make a decision. Yes, the situation was unfortunate, the fast broke, but that person did not get a sin. So what we need to understand is, as unfortunate as these scenarios may be, the fast will break, yes, but there will be no sin as long as there was no intention, there was no intentional to deliberately break one's fast. So after all of the things that we've talked about, what is the conclusion that we can derive? The conclusion is one statement. And what is that statement? The fast is only invalidated if a substance enters from an entry point that is connected with the digestive system, giving the substance an independent stay therein without the presence of an excuse that could prevent the fast from being invalidated. That summarizes the whole discussion that we just had. If we ever want to find out and we want to see if my fast has broken, fit your scenario into this statement. So let's try an example. Today I'm going to go about like 10 minutes over regularly we do about an hour, but I'm going to go another 10 minutes. I hope that's okay with everybody. But what it is that the fast is only invalidated if a substance, so it has to be a substance, right? It has to be a discernible substance, right? So let's say a person, he's there and he has, let's take the CPAP issue, right? We had a question a few days ago regarding the CPAP, right? The CPAP uses a humidifier. CPAP has two functions. It either uses humidifier or it does not. So you can turn the humidifier function off or you can turn it on. If you turn the humidifier function off, it's just blowing air, right? It's just basically blowing air into your throat. But if this humidifier function is on, it's blowing steam with the air. So it's blowing water vapor. I don't want to call it steam. It's water vapor, right? Water vapor is being thrown with the air into your throat. Now, steam and water vapor is a substance that has a discernible body. So check mark 1. The fast is only invalidated if a substance enters from an entry point that is connected with the digestive system. It enters through the mouth and nose. Both of these entry points are connected to the digestive system, i.e. the throat, stomach, and the intestines. Because through the nose and mouth, the intestine will get there, right? And once that steam goes, it's not like it's connected to something where you're going to pull the steam back out. No, it goes in and it independently stays there. So check mark to number one. Check mark to number one. We got check mark on substance. We got check mark on entry point. And we got check mark on the fact that the entry point leads to the digestive system. And we got check mark on the fact that it is an independent stay therein. And from the excuses that we discussed, right, i.e., forgetfulness, something getting stuck in your mouth before Fajr, or the small substance that has some chewable thing, or small substance that enters like a sesame seed or something, and something that is unavoidable, right? It does not fulfill any of the excuses, because a CPAP machine is deliberately used. There is deliberation on the CPAP machine. It's not something that randomly just occurs. It is deliberately used in order to get easy sleep or so on and so forth. It's an actual issue. People have this problem, and it's completely understandable. There's nothing wrong with that issue. So after looking at it like this and looking at it through the lens of what we just learned, we can understand that the CPAP machine, so the presence of an excuse, no presence of an excuse, right? So our first four criteria, perfect. Our last criteria, we don't, it doesn't have an excuse. So therefore, the first four remain, and through that, we decide that using a CPAP with a humidifier, because the humidifier is the problem, was using a CPAP with the humidifier is a means of breaking one's fast, as compared to the other way, using a CPAP without humidifier. Now CPAP without humidifier is just going to blow air, right? Wallahu alam, that's what I've understood after my research and looking at and talking to some physicians. I understood that the CPAP is going to blow air. Either it's going to blow air with the humidifier to get that water vapor there in order to open up the lungs and so on and so forth, or it's just going to blow air. So now, just if it's blowing air, right? Air is a substance, but it's not a discernible body. It's everywhere. You breathe it anyways, right? Does it enter through the point? Yes. Does it get to the digestive system? Maybe. Allahu alam. The thing is, it goes to the lungs, right? It's air. And then not only that, it doesn't really have an independent state, because it doesn't have any body. It doesn't have a discernible body. So all of our scenario, all of these points that we wanted to check off in order to say that the fast was invalid, is now, they're not checked off. They're all crossed. Because of which we understand that using a CPAP alone will not invalidate the fast, as compared to using a CPAP with the humidifier will invalidate the fast. Same thing applies. Some guy blows some air into you, right? Somebody has their mouth open and some guy blows air into it. Nothing is going to happen. But some guy throws some rocks into his throat, or I don't know, throw some peanuts in his throat, right? That will break it, because all of our points. So this is how we utilize the summary that is placed here in order to understand how one thing breaks the fast. Now, let's just go and quickly look at a little chart. One of the ulama, mashallah, Allah give them jazai khair, and Allah give them the best of rewards in this world and the hereafter. They have actually sat down and they have gone through a lot of books of fiqh and so on and so forth, and they've done this. So Allah give them jazai khair. I'm actually not really sure of where this Maulana studied, but I know him, mashallah. He's very, very good, and he made this chart from the principles that I've mentioned to you, looking at the different books. And so in our current day and age, right, what do we these are common things. Acupuncture takes place. So these are common things that take place. So do they break the fast or they do not? I actually had to cut the picture and I had to separate it, so on and so forth. So acupuncture, it would not invalidate the fast. Why? Because the entry point is not an invalidating entry point. And you can see just across the board, you can see what invalidates the fast, what does not invalidate the fast. Asthma pump, I'm not going to go into detail for everything. Maybe certain things I'll go into. Asthma pump, yes. Why? Because you're actually putting something, the asthma, the inhaler, right, has some medicine in it that actually goes. So if you were to use your inhaler just on a piece of paper, that section of the paper where the inhaler blew, that should actually, if there's medicine inside and there's actually functioning, it should actually, there should be signs of that medicine. Some medicines have color, some don't. I'm not sure if every inhaler has a colorful one, has a colorful medicine. But children's inhalers, they have colorful medicine for that exact reason, to know that if the child actually took the medicine in. Right. So what it is it's just a color. So what they do is the parents, they will help the child take the inhaler, and they will look in the mouth just to see if the color is there, and then they'll know that, okay, this thing has reached where it's supposed to go, and they will know that the inhaler had something in it for the child to benefit from. So once again, taking an inhaler will break the fast. Contact lenses, no. Right. Once again, eye not considered as an entry point, as an invalidating entry point. Creams, lotions on the skin, deodorant on the skin. Skin is not an invalidating entry point. Now, deodorant, sometimes it could have some visible fumes. Wallahu alam. How you could have visible fumes is like, somebody's burning deodorant, or essences, incense. Somebody burns. It's gonna come ahead. It should be here. Astaghfirullah, I can't seem to find it. But what it is for example, lighting incense, right at the bottom over there. So if one inhales the visible fumes of something there, so when you light your incense, there's some fumes that come out. Now you're at the end of the room and you're just smelling, and the smell of the thing comes, no problem. But the visible fumes, you go right to the incense and you take in that visible fume, that will invalidate your fast. The same thing women need to take care of, especially those women and men that are cooking for themselves. They need to take care of that they don't start smelling things in the kitchen that have visible fumes. Right? Something is cooking, the water is boiling, and they're smelling that will invalidate your fast. Right? That will invalidate your fast. So you need to make sure that you don't do that. Eardrops, unless if the eardrum is broken, eardrops will not break the fast. Endoscopy, like I mentioned, endoscopy has some solution sprayed into the throat. Right? Because they spray that solution into the throat, it will invalidate the fast. Right? And in the same manner, endoscopy is from top to bottom. I forgot what they call the one that goes from bottom to top. In that, if they go more than one, if they spray something in there, like if they spray something or they attach something or they lubricate that utensil they use to put in, right, and that lubrication is left inside, and the thing comes out, so that lubrication will be the thing that breaks the fast. So lubrication during the endoscopy and the other one, it's just completely blanking. I'm completely blanking. I had it written somewhere as well. Allahu Akbar. Extracting blood, right? So taking blood, it won't break your fast. Eye drops don't break your fast. Injections, because you're putting something in, as long as you're not directly injecting into the stomach or directly injecting into the throat, right, that's fine. Or directly injecting into the intestines, right, then it's okay. Intravenous drips, right, they do not break the fast, because they're also they're used, and they're usually injected in the arms or something like that. They're not directly injected. Once again, directly injecting into the stomach, that will break the fast. Lighting incense, I already mentioned this one. Lip balm. Now, to use lip balm is actually makruh. The reason behind that is because it's too close for comfort. That's the rule. Right? You're putting something on your lips, and you know that generally, you're gonna get some residue that will go into your mouth. So yes, we can't say that you broke your fast. We can only say if you broke your fast when that lip balm has actually gone into your mouth. So if you taste the lip balm after putting it on in your mouth, then assumptively you have actually that is going down your throat. Unless if you quickly spit that out and you remove the lip balm, then only you can understand. So if you can taste it in your throat, then that's too far. Now it's done. Your fast is broken. But if you can taste it in your tongue and you can manage to spit it out, clean your tongue and get rid of the lip balm from your teeth, from your lips, you're fine. You're good to go. Makeup does not break your fast. Mouthwash depends. If it goes in, it'll break your fast. So too close to comfort, once again, right? Too close to comfort, so it's best not to use mouthwash. Miswak is the best thing to use. Miswak mitharatun lil fam wa mirdatun lil rab. Right? What about spit? Like we mentioned before, saliva, mucus, anything like that that comes out to your mouth and you swallow it, that does not invalidate the fast. However, if let's say you took it on your hand and you swallowed it again, like children do, I don't know, right? Somebody did that. Let's say a person went a little bit insane. They lost cognitive sense, right? They didn't have cognitive sense. They spat in their hand and they drank their spit or ate their spit because of their insanity. That will invalidate their fast. The insanity might not invalidate it, but the action that they did while they were insane will invalidate their fast. Nose spray, yes, it will invalidate the fast because it is a substance that goes and it's sprayed, and it's not something that will just stay there. Patches, these are patches that are put on the skin, like nicotine patches and so on and so forth. They will not invalidate the fast because they're put on the skin. Somebody puts it on their tongue, that will invalidate their fast. So if there are those nicotine tongue gums or whatever that you put on, that will invalidate the fast. Smelling food will not, unless if there is deliberately one takes in the steam of food. Deliberately, once again, deliberately one takes in the steam of food, like I mentioned before, for those that are cooking. Smelling perfume, if the perfume does not have a discernible visible fume to it, visible steam or fume to it, then it will not invalidate the fast. But if it does, and one person goes and takes in that discernible visible fume, then it will invalidate the fast. Smoking completely invalidates the fast. There is no question about it. Suppository, yes, it enters the digestive system through the anus, which is an invalidating entry point. Once again, like I mentioned, if it's like one of those small ones, very small, right, and it was just for something that they had or some lubricant that they needed or something, it shouldn't, right? But the general rule is we use this with the suppository. When it enters through the rear end, the anus, right, it will invalidate the fast. Toothpaste, once again, just like mouthwash, if it goes in, it will invalidate the fast. If it doesn't, it won't, but too close to comfort. So we generally refrain from that. And lastly, a examination of the female private part, it will not invalidate. Like I mentioned, scientifically, the female private part is nowhere connected to the digestive system. Therefore, the female private part is considered as anything that goes on there will not invalidate the fast, as long as there's nothing that rips through that and goes into the stomach or something like that, some sort of medical phenomenon, you can say, that I'm unaware of. But these are the common things we discussed today. All the basic principles of what invalidates the fast, what does not invalidate the fast, how we can determine whether the fast is invalidated or is not invalidated, and some common examples that take place on a daily basis that people do, that some of them do invalidate the fast, some of them do not invalidate the fast. So I'll end off there, inshallah. And next week, what we'll be doing is we'll be talking about we'll be discussing frequently asked questions. Some questions that you guys sent in, alhamdulillah, on Darul Uloom Edmonton, the website. Once again, I'll put the website here. I mean, sorry, not the website, the email address. So send in your questions if you want, if you have any questions, and inshallah, we can discuss them with some time, as much as time permits, in the next session, inshallah, on next Friday. So this is the email, and you can send in any questions you have to that email. If it's a question that is something that, it might not be appropriate to talk in front of everybody else, then I will probably I will probably give you a reply personally, right? If not, then I will reply to you. I will reply on the thing, and I'll send you a message of acknowledgement that we received your question, and we will talk about your question in the next setting, in the next thing. If it's something that's urgent and needs to be answered quickly because you need to fast tomorrow, then obviously I'll try my best, inshallah, to answer it as quickly as possible. Before I take questions, inshallah, I'll stop the recording of this meeting, and أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور